delivered over the next several months. The TRCM is pleased to be able to offer these webinars, and we certainly hope that you enjoy the next 3/4 of an hour learning and sharing. Before we get into the webinar, I would like to welcome everybody that's here today. We have registrations from teachers and interested members from across our province. We have some folks from the Government of Manitoba. We have folks from the Treaty Commission, from Frontier School Division, from Sunrise School Division. So on behalf of the Treaty Commission and the Treaty Education team, I would like to welcome everybody. Absolutely. The TEI webinar series is hosted by the Treaty Relations Commission of Manitoba. And today's webinar, using Let's Talk Treaty in the Classroom, will be presented by me, Connie Wyatt Anderson. I am the Treaty Education Facilitation Lead. Before we begin the webinar, I'd like to remind viewers that if you need to increase the volume of the presentation, please use the computer volume controls. In addition to the Adobe connects volume control. If you come across any technical issues today, a recording of today's webinar will be available in a few days on the TRCM website at www.trcm.ca. Finally, if you have any questions during the webinar, you're more than welcome to type them into the chat box to your right-hand side of the screen. You can chat as we're going through. I'd be happy to answer you and respond and have a discussion, or chat after, or reach out to us after the presentation. So welcome everybody. It's my pleasure to be here today of our second webinar in our series of Let's Talk Treaty. So let's begin. The webinar today, what we're going to do is we're going to provide a backgrounder to the Let's Talk Treaty radio program. We're going to recap one particular radio segment, and when the radio segment is over, we're going to use that segment as a teaching tool by exploring Treaty Education Initiative lesson plans and activities that link to the theme of the radio segment. So before we get into the Let's Talk Treaty, I'll give you a bit of a backgrounder. Let's Talk Treaty is a 15-minute bi-weekly radio series aimed at gaining a deeper understanding of the Manitoba treaties. The show features Treaty Commissioner Loretta Ross. You can see Loretta in the image to the left. And Loretta invites and speaks to a variety of speakers, with the central theme being treaties and the treaty relationship. You can access these radio shows on our website at the trcm.ca. Before we get into it, so we know a bit about already, we're going to listen to a radio spot. I'll provide you a bit of a high-level overview of what the Treaty Education Initiative is. The Treaty Education Initiative is the education initiative of the Treaty Relations Commission of Manitoba. It's a K-12 public education strategy, and its overarching goal is to increase the knowledge and understanding of treaties and the treaty relationship in Manitoba schools. It's supported by a suite of K-12 teachers' resource guides. You can see them in the top image, as well as a kit. And you can see the materials found in the Treaty Education Kit on the bottom, laid out on a table. The kit itself is a curated collection of materials, everything from text to manipulatives to video for you to implement treaty education in your classroom. So we're going to start off our webinar today. For the next 10 or 15 minutes or so, we are going to explore the Peguis-Selkirk Treaty. So again, we're going to explore the Peguis-Selkirk Treaty. We're going to listen to a talk between Commissioner Ross, Elder Harry Bone, and Dr. Maureen Matthews, who is a cultural anthropologist from the Manitoba Museum. When the talk concludes, we'll use the themes in the talk to investigate some of the Treaty Education Initiative learning activities that mesh with those themes. So without further ado, I'm going to click play, and we're going to listen to episode 4, the Peguis-Selkirk Treaty, with Elder Harry Bone and Maureen Matthews.
The following presentation is a paid-for program. The views and opinions given do not necessarily represent those of NCI-FM.
Welcome to the show. This is Loretta Ross, Treaty Commissioner at the Treaty Relations Commission of Manitoba, and I want to welcome everyone back to our fourth show of Let's Talk Treaty. And just as a reminder to our audience, the Treaty Relations Commission has as part of its mandate treaty education. So through these radio shows, we hope to provide our listeners with a variety of topics that we hope will provide some insight and understanding of the treaties here in Manitoba. So in our previous shows, our first two shows, Elder Bone had provided us all with an elder's perspective on the relationship and the importance of treaties, and he talked about the ceremonies that went into the signing of the treaties. He talked about a goetiwin, and that's about relationships and working together, as well as the importance of our language and the 7 principles as they relate to treaty: the creator, the land, the people, and the 4 directions which represent our teachings, our language, our history, and our way of life. And all of that sets the foundations for the treaty relationship and the First Nations perspective as they relate to the treaties and the significance of the treaties for First Nations people. From there, we've moved on and we talked about a treaty that's often forgotten in our history, and that's the Selkirk Treaty or the Peguis Treaty. It is known by a couple of different ways, and we've had Maureen Matthews, who's a curator of cultural anthropology at the Manitoba Museum, join us at our last show, and she provided a historical perspective of the Selkirk Treaty. And through this show, certainly at the last show, we understood that we needed a little bit more time to talk about the Selkirk Treaty, and there's some unique things about the Selkirk Treaty that I think it's important that our audience is aware of. So we want to dedicate this show to that specifically. So today we have 2 guests. We have back with us is Maureen Matthews, so I want to welcome Maureen back to our show. And we also have Elder Bone join us. And so we want to provide, again, and I'll turn to Maureen, maybe you could provide a quick snapshot or summary of the Selkirk Treaty, and then we'll get into some dialogue and discussion about some of the unique aspects about the treaty.
Well, the Selkirk Treaty, the important thing is that it was precipitated by the arrival of the Selkirk settlers, and it was also grew out of Lord Selkirk's understanding of the Royal Proclamation of 1763 and the need to reach an agreement with local Indigenous people about where his settlers might farm. The other thing that we talked about was that it was viewed at the time as part of a series of treaties that were related to the fur trade that were typically renewed annually, and so the signing of the Selkirk Treaty would have been seen as the beginning of a relationship between Lord Selkirk and his settlers and the people who signed the treaty, particularly Peguis, who took a first-hand role in it. And Peguis was very unhappy that Lord Selkirk died so suddenly and never returned, but we did talk about it last week. The important thing was that the subsequent Lords Selkirk have kept on coming, and Lord Selkirk the 11th was here this year to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the treaty, and they have continued to act out and to reinforce the relationship that was formed when the treaty was signed.
Okay, now just as a reminder to the audience, the Selkirk Treaty was signed in 1817, correct? Mm-hmm. And so that's at least 50 years prior to the signing of Treaty Number 1, which was then signed in 1871. So this is a reflection of the relationship that's an early relationship, I guess, or between First Nations people and the settlers or Lord Selkirk. So it's really important that we keep that in mind, right, in terms of the history. But as we move now to some of the unique things, I mean, that's unique in and of itself because, as you said, the significance and the importance of that relationship is demonstrated by these annual visits or these regular visits by Lord Selkirk back to this. So I think that says a lot about the importance of the Selkirk Treaty. But there's also some other unique aspects about the Selkirk Treaty. And can you maybe share a little bit about what those are, Maureen?
Well, I think one of the unique aspects of the Selkirk Treaty is it was a moment in time in the sense that Peguis, who signed it, was fairly new to the country himself and his people. But at the time there were 10,000 Cree and 8,000 Assiniboine in the area, and that's why the other signatories might at the time have been more important politically. And it's we just have to remember all the way through, people didn't know how it was going to turn out. Nowadays, the Anishinaabe are really the most important community near Winnipeg and in most of southern Manitoba. That wasn't the case at the time. And Peguis allied himself with the Hudson Bay Company in signing this treaty, and he policed it too. His men made sure that people followed the terms of the treaty, and so he really had a lot invested in it. tend to think of it as to Selkirk's benefit, but as I say, Selkirk never came back. And what the treaty is, as far as I'm concerned, and Harry, correct me if I'm wrong, the treaty established an area next to the rivers where the settlers could build their farms if they built a farm. But I don't think there's any evidence that the native people who signed that treaty gave away rights of access to the river, or even rights to set up farms themselves in that area. This was just the area. If you were going to build a farm, build it here, and you can't build it anywhere else. It was sort of a kind of a reserve for white people. Right, it would only make sense because by doing that, and if they were
prohibit them or deny them themselves from entering, and that they're denying themselves access to the water.
Exactly.
And the water, of course, was a big part of Indigenous people. Lives.
And there was a misunderstanding right from the first. The chiefs heard that people thought that they had sold all that land, and within 3 days they had visited Selkirk to tell them, no, that's not what happened. And there's little newspaper accounts of that. So, and then you just have to look at it, how it turned out. All of the people who had their farms north of Selkirk were the people who were part of the very first reserve, the Peguis Reserve. That's where they were. They didn't give it away.
So for those that haven't seen the Selkirk Treaty, we're actually at the Treaty Relations Commission. We'll post it on our website so people can visually see what it looks like. So when you visually look at the text of the treaty, again, it's a little bit different than the written text of the number treaties. And can you describe a little bit why they're different?
Well, the main reason was that the parties were different. This was Lord Selkirk acting probably a little casually on behalf of the king, or the queen, or it was the king at the time. It was George III. And whereas things had shifted radically by the time we had the numbered treaties, it's important because the chiefs who signed had the Selkirk Treaty in mind, and many trade treaties that preceded it, where they had been respected and where there was some degree of movement as annual discussions about the treaties came along. But they were very much in a position of being able to set terms and so on. So this history of treaty making came before the treaties with Canada. But Canada took a different attitude. And although the treaties, when they were signed, were still signed in the context of this respectful relationship. Within 12 years, things had changed so radically. And that's the thing. We know how it turned out. But we have to remember this history of treaty making and respectful treaty making that actually prevailed right through the number of treaties. And then the Indian Act, which was not connected, not negotiated, and imposed all kinds of things on those people that they'd never agreed to.
Now, Elder Bon, I'm going to turn to you a little bit. The physical, and this is what I'm trying to get to, there's unique markings on the Selkirk Treaty and there's a lot of discussion about what these markings signify, but for the most part they appear to be markings that represent different animals, or they look like they're pictures of different animals. And as I said, I think people don't quite know what those markings mean. So and I'm not sure who wants to go first, Maureen or Elder Bowen. Talk a little bit about what those markings mean and maybe some of the perspectives or thoughts about the markings.
You have the treaty there, don't you? So there's 5 animals. There's a snake, a bear, a marten, a catfish, and 2 fish, another kind of fish. And so they're very obvious animals symbols. And they appear to represent the individuals who sign. That is how they signify that they agreed to the treaty. There's a couple of interesting things on the treaty itself. A couple of people signed them upside down, and when I showed this to an elder, and they said, "Oh, those two guys didn't really go with everything they signed, but they didn't totally agree." So the upside down figures may mean something, but I think that we have questions about whether those do those animals represent the person's clan, or are they individual signifiers of people within a clan? So, Harry, I know that you've been very interested in this question. What's your theory?
Well, thank you very much, Miigwech. Well, for First Nations people, the clan system is very important. It represents who we are, our identity, and our nationhood. Our sovereignty. The ones mentioned in Treaty Selkirk Treaty are very important because it represents the natural law. Our connection to the land, our connection to the animals that represent the land. So for all of us, those signatories were actually a clan system. They represent some people when they signed these treaties. So they exercise their own treaty perspectives, their own perspectives as people. But what's important about the clan system is this was also practiced prior to during the Hudson Bay era. The pipe ceremonies was very important. The tobacco was very important. The ceremonies was very important. So the animal connection as symbols of who we are as nations was very important. So it's an established protocol at a particular time, before even the Selkirk Treaty was there. So I think for us, the net represents, our original thought, who we are as First Nations people. That's our connection to the land and our responsibility to speak for it and to protect it. So that's what, the clan system means to us.
And so some of these, as you say, markings and I not sure what the correct term of them are. But if they are classes, but there are more importantly, I guess ways of identifying themselves right. That it identify themselves as Chief Peguis and the other chiefs that were there. And I think that that's an important aspect of the Selkirk Treaty that you don't see in the other in the number treaties.